Welcome back. We're looking at the situation in Lebanon, asking, is Lebanon plunging back into civil war? Joining us now is Dr. Shibli Malat, a human rights attorney with a practice in Beirut. He's currently a visiting professor of law at the University of Utah. Dr. Malat's also a candidate for the presidency of Lebanon. Sir, on that issue of the presidency, how do you see the current impasse, the way it's standing, as far as the government not being able to even move forward without something being resolved here?
Well, contrary to what Ambassador Jerejian was saying earlier, Syria has been blocking the presidential process now for 3 years. He mentioned 1559. 1559 is a resolution that was set in September 2004 and called for free and fair elections in Lebanon. The Syrians and their allies in Lebanon have been blocking this for the past 3 years. And truth is that the international community has not lived up to its request under the Security Council resolution to make that free and fair presidential election real.
Of course, that the presidential situation is complicating the way things stand. What do you think has precipitated this latest issue? I mean, of course, there's we have Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah of Hezbollah saying it's that a war has been declared against Hezbollah. But what do you think has precipitated the latest crisis?
Look, it was inevitable. It was just a matter of time. And contrary to what is being peddled, Syria wants a chaotic Lebanon. Syria, the leadership there has never accepted that Lebanon gets free from its clutches, and it has been pushing its allies to block every single initiative over the past 3 years, and particularly over the past 6 months, most particularly the issue of electing a new president. So this has been blocked, and with the deadlock over the presidency, the whole country was just waiting for the fuse to light, and it lighted last week when Hezbollah stopped on his way from the airport a senior French representative on the Socialist International. When the government removed the Hezbollah airport director, then Mr. Nasrallah came up and escalated.
We have a caller on the line.
But it was inevitable. It was just a matter of time.
Thank you, Dr. Malat. We've got a caller on the line from Switzerland. Ahmed, I think you have a question for us?
My question really is that I think it's really a shame that the way the situation has deteriorated in Lebanon. And why is it the Arab League does not do anything or support the Lebanese government? I mean, shouldn't they support the democratically elected government? It's a shame to see what's happening to this country.
Let's get the perspective from Dr. Malat on this.
Well, the Arab League has its initiative, but the Arab League is completely split. Syria is opposed to Egypt and Saudi Arabia, and part of the proxy wars that is taking place is over the control of Lebanon, and you can't expect that requests from the Arab League be implemented, because Syria is part and parcel of the Arab League and stands exactly opposite what a number of Arab countries like Egypt, like Saudi Arabia are. So we can't expect anything from the Arab League, because it itself is completely split, let alone it has absolutely no legitimacy. It's a bunch of Arab dictators who've been sitting there for 50 years and requesting that free elections for the presidency take place in Lebanon. They simply don't have the clout to impose a process of the presidency in Lebanon. And so the deadlock, as in the case of Iraq, will continue. The Arab League, unfortunately, has very little to do or to say, because it's simply incapable of being effective.
Dr. Malat, of course, we'd mentioned that you're a candidate for the presidency, and one of the things that people in Lebanon are looking for from the leadership is an improvement in the economic situations. From what you know, how bad have things become for the average person there?
Well, it's terrible. I was in Beirut last week, so there is a great crisis in Lebanon, and that's part of the international crisis over oil and the rising food prices. The problem is that there is no serious government that can tackle these issues, and this is being played against the background of security and regional contradictions. So it's just an additional factor to an already extremely tense situation.
What about the, as far as, I mean, obviously we've got the situation that Lebanon depends so much on tourism. Is there going to be any kind of stability, anything you can predict in the future that might allow at least the country to get back on its footing in time for the flux of people that usually come to spend time there and bring in urgently needed money in the summer?
Look, we're in the midst of the civil war. if one thinks for a second that a tourist is going to venture in Lebanon in the coming weeks and months, it's a great delusion. One thing, though, I would say is that I'm extremely upset. As I said, I'm absolutely convinced that the Syrian leadership is behind the crisis. It has been blocking our political institutions for the past 3 years. What is needed today is for the Syrian leadership to know that there are consequences in Syria over the deadlock that they have been provoking in Lebanon, let alone the murders that they are responsible for.
We have another caller from Switzerland on the line. Jad, your question, please.
Yes, hello. Dr. Khan, I have one question for Dr. Malat, actually. It's about the putting all the blame on Syria. Is that really currently applicable today to the situation in Lebanon? Isn't it something that was really the case 10 years ago, but things has changed since then?
Okay.
Look, of course the situation is complicated, and there is no doubt that there's a blame on the Lebanese leaders as well. Even the Hariri Jumblat faction, with whom I have closer connections, are responsible for not respecting the demands for the people to have a president. They're not just moving. Now, other Lebanese factions like Hezbollah, which take their cue from Syria and Iran, and of course Mr. Aoun, who said specifically that he would block the presidential elections if he were not himself the president. So of course there is a very serious dimension of blame over the Lebanese leadership, and my candidacy was to try to offer something different. But at the moment, the key problem in Lebanon is the Syrian leadership. They don't want the institutions to go forward. They have been blocking even a president they had themselves appointed as commander-in-chief of the army. And I have no doubt that Syria is directly responsible, and that if the Syrian leadership is forced, coerced, or convinced to change, that peace would immediately obtain in Beirut.
I wonder, Dr. Malat, what has prompted Walid Jumblat? You mentioned him, the Druze leader, the head of the Progressive Socialist Party. What has prompted him, motivated him right now to go after Hezbollah in this way?
I think it was the arrest of this chap on the way to Beirut. That means that, in effect, what Hezbollah does, and it's something that I lived myself in the center of Beirut, and that's, again, a great weakness of the Siniora government, is to have allowed Hezbollah to prevent people from going to their offices, to their work in central Beirut for a year and a half. This is unprecedented in Lebanon. People have a right to demonstrate, but they cannot prevent people from getting to their houses and getting to their offices. And the last straw, as it were, was this arrest of a foreign dignitary on the way to the airport, as if Hezbollah had any sort of right to stop a citizen, let alone a foreign citizen, from going anywhere they want in Lebanon. This was completely outrageous.
Right. Well, Dr. Shibli Malata, thank you very much for joining us, sir. We hope to speak with you again.
All right.
And thank you for being with us. Don't forget that we'll keep you updated on the events taking place in Beirut in Lebanon as here on Al Jazeera, so stay tuned for that. Now, a special programming note, as part of Al Jazeera's special coverage of 60 years of division, marking the founding of Israel, we'll be broadcasting from Israel and the Palestinian territories all next week. You can watch and take part with your comments at 1900 GMT. We'll see you next time.